When we think of Pythagoras, we usually think of his famous math theorem. But did you know that Pythagoras was also a mystic who dabbled in astrology, music of the spheres, and even the occult? And that he may have even been the founder of secret societies or mystery schools here in Greece around 500 BC, thousands of years before the Freemasons? Welcome to my channel, it's me. And today we go in to look at what Pythagoras and his secret society can teach us about the origins of Western esotericism. You'll want to stick around for the big reveal at the end of this video. Now, while Pythagoras is largely forgotten today, except for his math theorem, his influence on Western culture has been nothing short of monumental. Plato credited Pythagoras with being the first to define philosophy as a distinct discipline in ancient Greece. And it was Pythagoras' ideas about the nature of reality that led to some of the most important developments in Greek science and mathematics. And yes, there's good evidence that Pythagoras and his school of thought were deeply involved in the occult. Pythagoras was born around 570 BCE in the Greek colony of Samos. As a young man, he traveled extensively throughout the Middle East, including Mesopotamia, Egypt, and most likely India. At the time, these places were centers of esoteric learning, and Pythagoras would have been exposed to all sorts of magical lore as well as advanced mathematical knowledge. When he returned to Greece around 500 BC, he settled in the city of Croton, where he would spend the rest of his life. The city of Croton was situated on the southern tip of Italy, and by 500 BC, it was a wealthy trading hub with ties to the great empires of the ancient world. However, it was also a hotbed of philosophical activity. Some of the most important pre-Socratic philosophers, including Parmenides and the two members of the Heraclitean school, lived and taught in southern Italy. Pythagoras likely came to Croton because of its intellectual atmosphere, and he soon established a school which attracted students from all over the Mediterranean. However, membership in Pythagoras' school was a privilege reserved for the elite few. For one thing, only men were allowed to join. But even more importantly, those who wished to study with Pythagoras had to undergo a rigorous initiation ceremony. According to legend, initiates had to swear a vow of silence for 5 years, during which time they could not speak a word. They also had to abstain from sex, marriage, and even beans. To say that Pythagoras' school was exclusive would be a bit of an understatement. There were apparently fewer than 200 initiates in the entire school. What sort of person would Pythagoras attract to his secretive cult? Well, according to the historian Diogenes Laertius, Pythagoras' followers were, quote, lovers of wisdom and of the truth, and unquote. The main goal of Pythagoreanism was to gain knowledge and understanding of the natural world through observation and mathematics. In fact, Pythagoras was the first person to treat mathematics as an end in itself, rather than simply a tool for measuring land or surveying buildings. Pythagoras and his students studied everything from the properties of numbers to the motion of the planets. They also made important discoveries in geometry, number theory, and astronomy. Pythagoras himself is credited with the discovery of the famous theorem that bears his name. This theorem states that in a right-angled triangle, the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. But while Pythagoreanism was undoubtedly a school of science, it was also deeply mystical. Pythagoras believed that numbers had divine qualities, and that they could explain the universe. For example, Pythagoras was fascinated by the fact that every whole number could be reduced to one of 3 categories: even and square, odd and triangular, or perfect. He believed that these categories corresponded to the three chief gods of the ancient Greek pantheon: Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. Pythagoras also believed that the intervals between the notes of the musical scale were related to the ratios between whole numbers. This discovery had a profound impact on Western music, and it helped to establish the Pythagorean tuning system, which is still used today. In addition to their studies of mathematics and music, the Pythagoreans were also interested in astrology, alchemy, and the occult. They believed that the stars and planets had an influence on human affairs, and that they could predict the future by studying their positions in the sky. They also believed that the universe was permeated by a divine mind or logos, and that this logos could be accessed through meditation and contemplation. Pythagoras' teachings were so esoteric and difficult to understand that his followers often treated him like a semi-divine figure. According to legend, when Pythagoras entered a room, everyone would fall silent and turn to face him, just as people would when the god Apollo appeared in human form. Now, whether or not Pythagoras actually demanded this sort of reverence from his students is debatable, but it's clear that his followers saw him as an extraordinary man, a man who had access to secret knowledge that was hidden from ordinary people. In fact, Pythagoras was sometimes identified with Apollo and other times with the god Dionysus. These identifications may seem strange at first, but they make sense if we consider the domains of these gods. Apollo was the god of music, poetry, and archery, while Dionysus was the god of wine, ecstasy, and the theater. Both of these gods were associated with the mysteries, that is, the secret rituals and beliefs of the cults. This is not surprising, considering that the main goal of Pythagoreanism was to gain access to secret knowledge. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, then you already know that I love to make connections between the secret history of the past and the esoteric wisdom of the present. If that sounds intriguing to you, then you'll love our new Secret Teachings podcast. Every week we dive deep into a different topic, exploring the forgotten wisdom and secret meanings behind the symbols, holidays, and events that shape our world. We talk about everything from the mysteries of ancient Egypt to the symbolism of Christmas and the secrets of the tarot. Our hope is that by uncovering the hidden meanings of the things that surround us, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. So if you're ready to awaken your mind and explore the mysteries of life, then be sure to subscribe to our new podcast, Secret Teachings. While Pythagoras was undoubtedly a brilliant mathematician and scientist, many of his ideas were considered strange and even heretical by the standards of his day. For example, Pythagoras believed that the earth was a sphere, which was contrary to the teachings of the leading philosophers of the time. He also believed that the soul was immortal and that it could be reincarnated into different bodies. These beliefs were similar to those of the Orphic cults, which were popular in Greece during Pythagoras' lifetime. According to legend, Pythagoras had a vision of the afterlife while he was in a trance. He said that he saw a vast meadow filled with souls that had just passed on. He could hear them talking to each other, and he realized that they were happy and at peace. Pythagoras also said that he saw a river that flowed through the meadow, and that this river was the river Styx, which in ancient Greek mythology was the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead. Pythagoras believed that when someone died, their soul would travel to the meadow and be reunited with their friends and family members who had died before them. After spending some time in the meadow, the soul would then cross the river Styx and be reborn into a new body. Whether or not Pythagoras actually believed in reincarnation is debatable, but his vision of the afterlife certainly had some similarities to the Hindu and Buddhist concept of rebirth. It's possible that Pythagoras was influenced by these Eastern traditions during his travels in the Middle East, although there's no way to know for sure. What's interesting is that Pythagoras was the only ancient Greek philosopher to have a vision of the afterlife, nearly 100 years before Pythagoras was born. Pre-Socratic philosopher Orpheus also claimed to have had a vision of hell. And like Pythagoras, Orpheus believed that the soul was immortal and that it could be reborn into different bodies after death. In addition to their beliefs about the afterlife, the Pythagoreans also believed in the harmony of the spheres. This was the idea that the planets and other celestial bodies made music as they moved through the sky. Pythagoras and his students were so convinced that this music was real that they built elaborate instruments in an attempt to hear it. Of course, the music of the spheres turned out to be nothing more than a myth. But this didn't stop Pythagoras from using it as a metaphor for the underlying order and harmony of the universe. For Pythagoras, this harmony was ultimately a manifestation of the divine. In fact, Pythagoras believed that the entire universe was permeated by a divine mind or logos, and that this logos could be accessed through meditation and contemplation. By studying the patterns and harmonies of the natural world, humans could tune in to this divine music and gain a deeper understanding of themselves and the universe. It's clear that Pythagoras was a highly influential figure in the history of Western thought. His ideas about the nature of reality helped to pave the way for some of the most important developments in Greek science and mathematics. But Pythagoras was also a mystic who was deeply interested in the occult. His beliefs about the afterlife, reincarnation, and the harmony of the spheres were unlike anything else being taught in ancient Greece at the time. And while much of Pythagoreanism has been lost to history, its influence can still be seen in many of the mystical traditions of the West. In fact, many later Western mystical traditions trace their origins back to the Pythagorean schools. The Rosicrucians, for example, claimed that their founder, Christian Rosencreutz, studied in a secret Pythagorean school in the Middle East, in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. One of the most influential occult organizations of the modern era also traced its roots back to Pythagoras. So was Pythagoras just a mathematician, an eccentric scientist, or was he the first philosopher priest of ancient Greece? I'll leave that for you to decide. But one thing is for sure, Pythagoras and his secret school played an important role in the development of Western esotericism. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and check out our new podcast, Secret Teachings. And as always, if you want to support my work directly, please visit our support page.